I'm Duncan McLeod, and this is the TechCentral Show, brought to you today by MTN Business. You can learn more about MTN Business at mtnbusiness.co.za, and we thank them for partnering with the show and helping bring you these great interviews. And we do have a very good interview lined up next. My guests today, can I introduce you to as cyborgs?
Pretty close. Getting there.
Getting there. That's the ambition, isn't it?
Loading, yeah.
They both have chips implanted in their bodies, and we're going to talk about that today. Jarryd Bekker, for anyone who watches TCS, will know Jarryd. We had him in the studio just a couple of weeks ago to talk about the Olievenhoutbosch wireless mesh broadband rollout project. And of course, Jarryd is CEO of a company called Riot Network. And Jarryd's joined in the studio today by Daniel de Kock. He is co-founder at Riot Network and also the Chief Technology Officer and fellow cyborg. Gentlemen, welcome.
Well, thanks for having us.
Pleasure. Before we start, Jarryd, I know there was a lot of excitement amongst our readership about the Olievenhoutbosch project. If anyone hasn't read the story and watched that interview, I highly recommend going back and doing that. It's well worth your time. But Jarryd, maybe just a quick update in the 3 or 4 weeks since we last spoke. What's happening in Olievenhoutbosch? What's happening at Riot Network?
Yeah, so lot's been happening. It's been a lot of adjusting to being out of stealth mode. Getting used to all the attention. But no, it's been very, very positive. A lot of ISPs have come out and said, look, this is exactly what they've been looking for. Also with funders, so it's sort of helped a lot with the exposure around that. But we're full steam ahead now. We're busy with the planning now for the new territories. There's some manufacturing happening for some of the first nodes. We're on track, and we should be hopefully in the next 6 weeks we should be breaking ground with some new stuff in Olievenhout.
Oh, excellent stuff. So do go check out that interview. Well worth your time. And Daniel, thank you so much for joining Jarryd in the studio today. Now, you guys both have, how many chips have you got in your body?
At the moment, 3.
3.
Yeah.
And you?
2.
2 chips. Okay. Let's start with you, Jarryd. I know that when we met, I managed to get your business card by tapping my smartphone on your arm and reading an NFC, some sort of NFC chip that you've got in your arm. But take us through the chips that you have in your body currently, what they do, why you installed them.
So the first chip I ever put in is actually removed. So I've upgraded that one since. So that was actually for my car. I had a Peugeot with keyless entry, and I was trying to solve 2 problems. I'm very bad with remembering where my keys and things are. So we started experimenting with, actually we were in cash and transit before, so we were working in very high security places. So we had to have key fobs to get everywhere, and then also the vehicles.
I might have to interrupt in there. The cash and transit he's talking about is the safeguarding of the money, not the
driving it around.
Yeah, not driving it around or going and collecting from the drivers.
Yeah, so vaults and cash enters. So we were trying to solve the problem of just keys, and the best place to put it is in your body. And while we were looking into that, we found other opportunities of what you could do with this, and then we went down a lot of rabbit holes for some early ventures to see what opportunities you could sort of do with this. But the first one was really for access control for my car. Unfortunately, the manufacturer refused to let me to add it, so we had to make other plans to do that.
What are the plans?
New chips and
okay.
And then so I removed that one, upgraded it. That was this one. Actually, our first chip was very hacky to try and put it in. We didn't have the correct devices to actually put it under the skin, so we found a guy who was, I think he was involved with the world record for suspending humans from hooks. So they made a human chandelier. So I contacted this guy and said to him, look, how do you put the hooks in? And so he sold me some gauge 2, gauge 3 needles, which you could almost put a pencil through those needles. They don't even call them needles, they call them blades.
Right.
And he gave me some of these things and put it in. And
you did it yourself?
Did it myself. And then, so that's
You're
the one
obviously not
removed.
squeamish.
No. I actually find it easier to do it on myself than on other people because you can feel what you're doing.
Yeah.
Doing it on another person, have to kind of look at how white they're going.
Do you give yourself some sort of anesthetic before doing this?
So the first one I did was red wine. After that, we found Daniel's mom's a pharmacist, so she gave us some local anesthetic cream just to put on, and
did it help?
It did the job, yeah. Better than the wine, actually.
Okay. So that was your first.
That was the first one.
All right.
Second one, I put into the other hand. So the first one was actually it was a type of proprietary NFC. Then we went to more open standards, so we could program them and do our own things on them, which is the one in that arm. And then we also put in some pet tags, because the pet tags were quite interesting. They seem to open a lot of very common RFID or NFC doors. So
what is a pet tag? Is this nothing to do with your dog, I presume?
Exactly.
Yes. Actual pets.
So that's a pet tag in my one hand.
Right.
And what's interesting there, it's 125 kilohertz.
Yeah, thereabouts. I think it's the EM4001 standard. So a lot of the regular access control devices use that. You can't change its code. You can't do anything. You order them with a set of unique numbers. A lot of people don't. A lot of people just buy whatever they can find at online shop.
Yeah.
And a lot of those numbers start at low numbers, and they're not globally unique like a MAC address or something like that. Or MAC address should be. So odds that this tag in my hand corresponds with some large firm's access control tags is very, very high. So that's what we used at the time, because we had one of those kind of security systems.
Interesting. Do you have to code them at all before they work?
These ones you can't. They come pre-coded, but the NFC ones you can change what they deliver.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the pet tags are interesting. You can walk through a shopping center or a big corporate, and when you see readers on the wall, you test them out, and sometimes they open the door because of the globally unique, very low number.
Right.
So that was quite an interesting hack. And then the other ones are NFC, pure NFC. So they've got memory banks, and you can program them to do different things, launch apps, store URLs, that sort of thing.
So what do you use it for mainly?
So at the moment, in our current stage of life, I'm using it like you saw with the business card. It's the quickest thing. So on there you can immediately add the contact to the phone, and then all my LinkedIn and other socials are sort of linked towards that.
Certainly a way to ensure that anyone you meet never forgets who you are. Right?
It's a brilliant conversation starter, actually, and it actually diffuses a lot of conversations quite quickly when there's this barrier, and then they ask for the business card, and then you pass them your arm, and then the whole thing changes. So that's been quite useful.
Yeah. So when did you put your first chip in, Jarryd?
Sure, that must have been 7 years ago, I think.
Yeah, thereabouts.
Yeah,
so you've been doing this for a while.
Yeah, about 7-8 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your chips, Daniel, what do you have?
My first one was his second one, because we found a bag full of these EM4001 tags.
Okay.
Basically, coming back to that was they're non-programmable, and they are like the vanilla RFID devices you get for most security systems. We had one of these at the office, and we kept losing our keys. I used to go in at 5 a.m. in the morning. So it's nice and quiet. It was Ankai alarmy. So from about 8, 9, guys start racing on a track, and you can't think anymore. So we had the security system, and we figured out what tags they use, because we needed to buy more tags for other staff members. And then Jarryd found this little baggie of EM4001 tags, and we got it. And they were all compatible, so we figured, well, let's just put them in, and then can't lose my keys ever again.
How does one just find a bag of these tags? Is it something you were doing with Riot, or?
Actually, there was a guy in Canada called Amal. He's got a company now that he founded since called Dangerous Things.
Yeah.
And Dangerous Things sells various implantables now. So he's actually built a full business where you can go and buy all sorts of biohacking supplies from front ends, little full implantable devices. There's some guys that go to the extent of implanting full Bluetooth devices under their skin, or magnets. Some people
feel magnetic fields, and
you can physically sense magnetic fields. So like a power line in a wall, you can actually feel the magnetic field oscillating. So there's a big culture actually of people that are modifying their bodies and augmenting, not just for medical reasons, but just for...
I was going to ask if this is a subculture. I mean, are there whole channels on Reddit about this?
Yeah, Reddit. All over. So there seems to be the active group and the passive group. So the active group are more the electronic intensive programmable type things, and then there's the passive where like your magnets and things that are not necessarily electronic, but they're still things that you're embedding in your body, either for aesthetic reasons or for like adding a sense or something like that.
Interesting. So the second chip you've got?
The second one is a NFC, I think a Type 1 tag, like the Gauteng cards.
Okay.
The idea there was that, again, Gauteng card, I kept losing the bloody thing, is if I could firstly crack the key on the Gauteng card, because they were using
Intag
216s, I think.
Security.
No, the physical chip in the card.
Okay.
Intag 216 was compatible with it. So we found these ones from Dangerous Things that had the similar memory bank layout, could do the same keys. So we could figure out what the keys were on the Gauteng card. I could put them in here and then,
And does it work?
No, it doesn't.
Oh.
I abandoned that because it got very distracted and figured out that at the time, Android didn't have a lot of security in terms of scanning NFC. So quickly figured out that if I put other NFC messages in this thing's memory bank, when someone's phone scans it, it launches a website, sends SMSs, adds V cards. They're practical uses, and then there are fun uses.
Like digital tattoos.
Like digital tattoo. I would reprogram this thing almost monthly, just point to a new random website when Stumble Upon and those kind of websites were still there. You can find interesting things on the internet that don't come through Reddit or big aggregator sites. So you find interesting things, you just put them on there, and it's a tattoo that you can change.
Like a GIF. You can have a GIF as a tattoo.
So what do you use this daily?
Not anymore. It's kind of fallen back. I think the last time we programmed it was about a year ago.
Okay.
Updated it too.
I'm using the NFC one very frequently.
Frequently, okay. And the others not so much.
Not so much. So the pet tag is very opportunistic, just to kind of see which doors or parking garages or things will let you in. But the business card right now is the big one.
Yeah.
And we had some other plans which we might revisit in the future of where this could go for real application.
Well, I was going to ask what's coming down the line. What are the guys talking about in the online forums?
Yeah.
And what are you most excited about?
Yeah, so we were actually the most interested in the biosensing application. So in the developing world, it's quite a big problem to manage diabetes. Very expensive to test, and so usually it involves pricking your finger, having an external device, measuring, and then you do that 2 or 3 times a day when you have meals. In the developing world, that's very expensive to do. You could do another approach where you could do it. You could test from within the body, so using optical sensors in your in the device. You could look for biomarkers, and you could estimate what the blood sugar is based on the ketones, blood sugar. So we were looking at ways of doing that. At that stage, our biggest problem was keeping persistent power in the body. So right now, these tags are passively powered. So the minute you bring a phone or an NFC device near it, it energizes the device, it wakes up, and then you have access to the memory.
Oh, wow.
In a sensing application, you'd want that thing to wake up periodically, take a measurement, and go back to sleep. And to do that, you need a bit of storage or energy storage.
Yes.
The problem is batteries don't like living at body temperature. So there have been quite a lot of advancements we were waiting for in battery technology, firstly to bring the price down, but also for survivability. You don't want a lithium battery in your body. We know what it does on airplanes. So.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. So, I mean, is it possible to charge these little devices? How much power do they consume typically, and can you actually charge that through the energy that's in your body?
Yeah, so it's milli to microamps that they consume when they're doing operations, but very quick to charge. So actually a supercapacitor would probably be more of a relevant storage device now. So as you go to bed, you have a pad like your Apple Watch, you brush past it a few times and it charges it.
Okay. Interesting. So I remember when we were traveling in Olievenhoutbosch, you spoke about monitoring your gut biome.
Yes.
And health, is that the same as the food monitoring one?
So where I think things are going is we in our body now we can start measuring multiple markers, and you can use things like AI to predict those things. So Where I see medicine going is that we're going to have very hyper tailored medicine per person. So depending on your biome, your gut biome, your blood type, where you live, what you interact with, there'll be very high specialization in what your medical care looks like. And I think these sensors are going to be that's what's going to augment it. So we could, based on these markers, you could say what your next meal should be, or what you have a deficiency of, or what time of day you should be eating, or what things you should be avoiding. So I think that's where this is probably going to move to, more in the predictive space, and not so much trying to resolve an existing medical condition, but rather augmenting or enhancing your health.
Fascinating. So you'd have a clear picture, and your doctors would have a clear picture of exactly what's going on inside your body.
In real time.
In real time. How far are we from that tech?
So the energy storage is the big barrier right now. If you can get energy storage inside the body for long term, so I'd say at least 2 to 4 years that you would have to do before replacing the battery, then it becomes a viable solution. And at that stage, it's very easy to tether it to your device. So you keep your phone in your pocket. If you implant it in your thigh, it's always next to it. You might not even need a battery, but there you could take very frequent readings, feed that to your doctor, and like in the diabetes case, your doctor might contact you saying that there's a problem rather than you contacting your doctor when it's too late.
Fascinating. How long do you think before this technology is here?
I'd say it's already here. It's just a cost thing right now. So when we were experimenting, it was mostly around the social aspect of it. So how receptive are people to it? How comfortable? Obviously, there's a lot of stigma around implanting chips in your body, in the back of your neck with a barcode.
Yes. Except if it's a pacemaker or a hip joint or those are quality of life enhancement things. Then people swing to accept it quite quickly. A lot of it was to try and figure out how do you frame this in a way that it betters someone's life when they get it, and also it's not being pushed down upon them. It's a choice to take it. There were some legal aspects where if a company were to implant you with this thing, whose property is this thing now? Is it the company's? Is it yours? How does it work when you leave? Things like that. So it basically came down to if someone wants it, that's cool. If they don't, it can't be pushed upon them. But generally when you can convince people that there's usefulness in having this thing, it gets accepted quite easily. The diabetes one is a very, very cool example of that.
You can actually get the sentiment can change 180 in a few seconds when you speak to a diabetic and say to them, look, you don't have to prick your finger 3 times a day. Immediately, I want one.
How long does it last?
When am I going to get one?
I suppose it's when big tech gets involved that the ethical questions start to come into it. And,
true.
If it's a big social media company that's got putting a chip in your body, why? What are they doing with it? So these chips you've put in, you do upgrade them from time to time. You pop them out, you put a newer version in. What does that actually involve?
So this one is quite easy. So when you do the implant, it sits in just below the connective tissue, and they're glass encapsulated. So your body makes a little bit of scar tissue that sort of holds this thing in place.
Okay.
So it's almost like a little capsule that it keeps it in. To remove it, you make a little incision into that little capsule, and it pops out almost like a little grain of rice.
Okay.
And then the upgrade is really simple. It seats itself back into that hole. To put the initial one in, we use a device like this. So the implant gets popped into the back of the syringe.
How big is this implant?
So it's literally the size of a grain of rice. So it fits inside the needle. It goes under the skin. We click to remove it, and then we pop a little plaster on the hole, and then 2 days later...
Body seals it over.
Exactly. So there you can see. So that one's a little bit bigger than a grain of rice, but...
You had one that was actually, maybe show it to the camera.
This one's quite prominent. I have to press quite hard to show it, but...
Over there. Is it meant to be so visible?
This was one that we put in after red wine anesthetic.
Okay.
So there's a video online somewhere in the depths of internet, I think the site's still up, of that entire process, the sterilization process, the cleaning, the gloves. It's not just a, sort of cyberpunk 2077, you go into a back alley, body mod, and you're out. We do practice, cleaning up and alcohol and sanitizing everything, because you are putting foreign matter into your body. You don't want this thing to get infected, and
Sure.
you still end up on the internet, but for the wrong reasons. But yeah, so this one is quite shallow, and then the other one in this hand, it's really hard to find, but it's quite deep. It's in the same place, just in the other hand.
Same size, everything.
Same size, everything, just a little bit deeper.
And are these implants, these little chips you've inserted, are they designed for use inside the human body, or are they designed for some other purpose?
Yeah.
They were actually designed for this.
Yeah,
A lot of them are used for animal husbandry. So the NFC ones, one of the main applications therefore was to replace ear tags on cattle and horses and things. So in this device memory, you can track vaccination dates, birth certificates, parentage, heritage, all those things for a particular animal, as opposed to ear tag, which you can't always write on. You can't get the animal to a laser engraver to re-engrave this thing or write on it with a pencil.
And most people wouldn't want to walk around with a cow ear tag on their ears.
Well, the cows don't seem to mind, but so some guys were using these things to track things for animal husbandry.
Sure.
So when they go to auction, you can verify the lineage of this animal. This is the same animal you went to inspect, that the one is the one that you're buying and you received.
Yeah.
Things like that. So that's one fairly solid application of this.
That supply chain actually is where you get the glass capsule. So from there, you could actually put anything you want into that glass capsule, as long as it can survive the glass blowing to seal it. You can actually put anything you want into there, and that was our sort of departure point to say, look, we've got chips that can do the RF front end. We've got memory, and you've got in that memory you can populate it through a sensor front end. So as long as you've got power, you could technically embed that whole thing into the little grain, and then you can put any sensor you want on there. And because the glass is transparent, our approach was to look at optical.
LEDs and
So you can fluoresce with a specific wavelength of light, and then the biomarkers in the blood will fluoresce with a different wavelength, and you can detect that, and then quantitatively estimate what's going on in the body. Other approaches, you could also take a virus. So this is where we're going with CRISPR, another type of body modification. You could actually take modify your own cells to produce certain markers which respond to systems in your body, and then your body would persistently make those markers. So you would have an implant, and then some gene therapy, and then the marker would be able to, or the device would be able to see things in your blood.
We all know about Moore's Law and the impact that's had on the computer industry over the last 50, 60 years. I presume Moore's Law applies in this space too, and that these devices are getting more powerful, getting smaller over time. What does Moore's Law tell us about where this is going?
So in the medical field, my view is that there is a bit of a governor, and that's in regulation. So with medical devices, you have to have supportability for 10 years plus. The process of getting these things approved and certified like a pharmaceutical would be, it's very long. So that's actually what slows the whole process down.
Okay.
And I think that's why this movement of biohackers has emerged. People don't want to wait for this. We've got ideas, we've got things we want to do, and the ethical question is a moot point if you're experimenting on yourself.
Yes.
So I think that's where this whole thing has emerged, because of the slow or the sluggishness of the industry, and Moore's Law doesn't want to wait for anyone. So I think that is actually why this whole movement has emerged.
Right. How many people are doing this worldwide, do you think?
There must be thousands now.
Yeah.
So actually, since probably about 4 years ago, there's been quite a big swell of people doing very extreme things. Some are quite dangerous.
Oh, really? Such as?
So the Bluetooth devices are quite large, and there you're starting to run into biocompatibility issues. What materials you're making the things out of? They're using silicones and funny plastics, which the body doesn't like.
Right.
Glass is nice because it's inert, but when you get very large and you start pressing up against it, you can damage the tissue, or it can break.
Okay.
So there have been some problems that have arisen from people experimenting, but you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs.
What are they using the Bluetooth to do?
I think it was things like
Scarab.
iBeacons, and sort of getting notifications when they get home and sending out beacons, because you're a big walking beacon, right? So,
right.
Okay, your phone does that too, but if you can do that without your phone,
For a smart home type application.
Yeah, smart home.
Like you walk in and your lights
home.
come on because it detects you.
The front gate opens for you, the lights dim, and it does the whole...
the music comes on. And
exactly.
Exactly.
And also, if the Bluetooth devices, a lot of them are, again, over-the-air reprogrammable, so the guys could change what they need this thing to do. Whether it's sending out beacons or sending out... I know some of the insurance providers do... They use the iBeacon protocol to send out alerts for emergencies, so if like the fall detect bracelets and those kind of things. And these guys were using that to say, well, announce my presence or announce a problem or use that as a built-in, biomonitor. Okay, the watches do it now, but back then, getting a smartwatch to do your heart rate and your blood SpO2 levels and those things, that was
the skin
very
contact. So reading optically through the skin was a very challenging problem to solve at that point. So the Apple Watch, actually there's some local companies that were quite involved in Cape Town in perfecting that.
Oh, really?
But that was the challenge back then, and we thought putting it in the body would be a
bypass
better route,
the air
more
gap.
reliable route. Yeah.
Speaking of smart home, you've got a device down here. Maybe I could just pass it to you.
Yeah.
It's from Samsung. It's a smart door lock. You were showing before we started recording how you use the NFC implant in your arm to trigger this thing.
So it's
just like that.
Yeah, this one's got a beautiful antenna. So NFC, especially on these implantable tags, the range is abysmal. I think with my phone, I have to get within 4 or 5 millimeters of the device because my phone's antenna is quite tiny.
Yes.
This thing's got a massive antenna behind the keypad here, so I can really just approach my hand with it and it scans it and opens the door. We were using this door lock at our office for several years. We got it from one of the suppliers when we told them this is the ridiculous thing we're doing with NFC tags, and they said, hell, cool, we'll help you. Buy one of these at cost or slightly above it to play with, and it was a lot of fun.
For those listening to the audio version of this discussion, I highly recommend catching the video version. But just to describe this briefly, this is a smart door lock from Samsung with NFC reader technology inside of it, and Daniel simply touching his hand against the door lock to unlock it.
So very much what you would have in a hotel with your hotel access cards. That would be the application of this. But without the card.
Have you tried hotel rooms and see if there's... And?
No, do you
sometimes the door opens.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you get a very surprised person on the other side.
Won't ask what was happening there, but...
So Daniel mentioned the range, so the very short range of these devices. So often we get the question of can we be tracked? Is Big Brother watching you? And that's the big concern. And actually, you've already got a device on you that does that.
Yes.
Your mobile phone does that.
These don't have GPSs inside them.
They don't have GPSs. So you have to be really within touching distance to read the thing off and do anything with it. So tracking is not really possible.
Okay.
We've had people ask us to, again, do wildlife tracking and anti-poaching and pets and those kinds of applications. The implantable... It doesn't really work like it. It's essentially a slightly smaller than a barcode. You have to be really close to use it, so it doesn't really fit the use cases of getting lost pets or parents or patients or horses or cattle or those kind of things. Yeah. Those are the most common things that people have asked us for. It's really good at identifying stuff, but not from far away.
Now, Elon Musk's Neuralink has been doing some interesting stuff. What are your thoughts on Neuralink and what's happening there? You want one?
Yeah, sign me up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Right now?
Yeah. So Neuralink and CRISPR, the minute those things are
what is CRISPR? Just remind me what CRISPR is again?
Gene therapy. So updating your genes, actually updating the firmware on your cells. I think
proper biohacking we're talking about.
From the fundamental level. So changing your source code would be CRISPR. Yeah. And then Neuralink would be more the interface between your body and computers. I actually see those two things, they'll be very useful together.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay, so when are you getting your Neuralink chip? Have you been in touch with Mr. Musk yet?
As soon as I find a supply. I've been sending him stuff on Twitter, but I think he's a bit too busy to respond to my shenanigans. But, as soon as I can get someone to put it in me, I think it's a go. You don't
think it's possibly dangerous having a chip in your brain?
So they've actually been doing things like this for quite a while. Deep brain stimulation, DBS. So for patients who suffer from tremors or so it's at Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and those types of neurodegenerative diseases, they've already had devices like that. So it's very much like a pacemaker. It sits in your chest, a little wire that goes up into your brain, and they insert it through the brain matter into the area where you get these short circuits or these storms of activity. Yeah. And when it detects that, so it'll sense that, and then it's almost like the pacemaker. It gives it a few jolts, and then it can recalibrate. So like your electroshock therapy, but not as violent and traumatic, and very localized, and they can actually turn on the tremors, so turn on and turn off the tremors.
Amazing.
So that's already been going for quite a long time. I think, and to insert these things has come a long way. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's going to be as invasive as people are worrying about.
Right. So what do you want to do with a Neuralink chip? What will it actually allow you to do that you're so desperate to get this installed in your head?
Yeah, so personally, I'm interested in the memory side of things. So being able to access, retrieve, and offload sort of memory, and then maybe a bit more on the connectivity side. So I think in our lifetime we'll get to a point where we can share a thought, where I can think something or have an emotion, and I can share it with another person. Yeah. I think that'll be a very interesting way of communicating.
I remember doing some research, must have been in the late 90s now. I'd read a book by a guy called Philip Drexler. I don't know if you've I'm sure you've come across him, who was kind of the father of molecular nanotechnology. And I remember a lot of the excitement at the time about how we were going to be able to use nanomedicine and target specific cancer cells in our body, for example, these tiny little atomic machines. And there was talk about how this could be used, the applications of this could eventually be used potentially to even upload our brains onto the internet and become immortal in that way. And I know that was very early days and there was probably a lot of hype around it at the time. You've done some research, clearly. You're nodding a lot here, Jarryd. Where are we in the nanotech space, specifically around molecular nanotechnology and building these little machines?
Yeah, so I think I sort of got off following it when we were at the stage of putting devices that actually look very similar to these implants into arteries and veins with cameras to go in and inspect. Obviously, we have swallowable tech, so little pills with cameras and lights. So that's sort of where I've ended with it. I think. A lot of the advancements are going more to external things, so like your AI type models of being able to predict things without getting too invasive with the body. But in terms of nanotech, I think we've still got a lot of hurdles to overcome powering it. So an area that we were very interested in with blood sugar is the blood sugar that's in your body. You could theoretically use it to power your device. You have fuel in your body, so in terms of ketones, blood glucose. So these machines need a power source. They can't store a battery on them or have a battery on them. So I think that one of the things we have to solve is if the ability to use those fuel sources that are in your body to power the things, then I think it'll be quite a big breakthrough. But already we can make very small devices. We just need to power them somehow.
Without you sitting in a gigantic magnetic field with MRI-like machines to move stuff around.
That wouldn't go down well with your average consumer. And then, of course, at the moment, there's a lot of hype around AI. Do AI and the sort of modifications that you guys are doing here, do they intersect at some point? And when that happens, what happens?
I think it intersects where you can use AI to number crunch crazy amounts of data. I think one thing where AI is a lot better than humans is it's got a longer memory. It can keep a lot of things top of mind to connect things that we might miss or that we need to spend months, years, lifetimes on figuring out this thing causes this particular thing or how these things are connected through a very complex system. So with AIs, they're able to do that a lot quicker. Yes, they're expensive in terms of energy and power usage and data centers, but they can do that where we, or at least as one person or one committee, you can't. So if you can feed the biosensors into those, it gives us the ability to use those tools figure out causality or to figure out prediction based on markers that we have not been able to figure out or have not been able to connect to particular outcomes. So I think that's where these two systems intersect, is you need to have sensors to sense things, to feed into this AI black box to tell you these things that might not seem related, tell you your blood sugar is this, or your stress levels, or you've got a heart palpitation, or you've got bad habits or good habits, or things like that. I think that's where that overlap happens, is just the ability of AI to bring together incredible amounts of data from various different sources. And a lot of these biosensors are just that. They are almost unstructured, or it looks meaningless, but en masse, and from the AI's perspective, it might be obvious.
So it starts to learn from other people and seeing certain markers in the body and then saying, well, this is happening here, so there's a good chance that actually this is happening in this person as well.
Correct, yeah. But not in the deterministic way that we think of it as at the moment, saying, well, if you run fast, your heart rate goes up. That's maybe a simple one, but these are things like if you walk in a certain way, your gait or the way that you lean or something might point towards you have a heart issue, or you've got a thing in that particular leg, which...
Or you drink too much red wine.
Yeah.
The predictive side, I think, is definitely that's where the AI application, and we already see it not even just with implantables, like your Apple Watch will do a similar thing where you can predict things like heart attacks before they happen. So I think where AIs will step in is the interface between you and your doctor, and rather switching from the remedy or the treatment after the fact to preventative medicine. So I think AI is going to be a big middle bit between the doctor and these types of sensors.
Yeah. We spent a lot of time in this interview talking about the medical and health side of things. Is that going to be the primary benefit of doing the sort of biohacking, do you think, or will there be equally big applications in other areas?
I think there'll be a lot of social impact, things like Jarryd was saying earlier, in terms of being able to share thoughts or being able to transfer a feeling or something that's
Spidey sense,
it's like Spidey sense, because our voices are quite narrow bandwidth in terms of getting an idea across or getting a feeling across or something, unless you're somewhat intimate with the person, be able to read their body language. So some of these implantables, especially if they have radios in them, might aid in those kinds of interactions, getting across things like trust or mistrust. Remember, it goes both ways. So I think in terms of social interaction, it also has a massive impact. Not just medicals are a cool one because everyone wants to live longer. Everyone wants to live healthy. No one wants to struggle through life. So medicals is one of the obvious ones, but there's probably a lot of fun things in terms of social, but there's also a lot of, and there's expression, like the digital tattoos or having pigments in your skin that you can change at will or change with reprogramming the thing so you can update your tattoos in terms of personal expression.
And sense augmentation.
Sense augmentation, yeah. Being able to sense other spectra or magnetic fields or hear different frequencies and things like that.
Broadening our awareness of the environment through adding sensors. We play a lot in the RF field. Imagine if you were sensitive to where the RF was coming from, and you could hear where a hotspot was coming from. I mean, those are the sorts of things I think.
Yeah, come some broadband.
Or you can navigate by essentially radar, because you got these nice RF illuminators all over the planet as cell phone towers.
Yes.
And if you could see where things are bouncing, it's passive radar, right? You can see that there's a vehicle around the corner.
Yeah.
Or you can see there's a person in that room, or whatever the case is. So there's those kinds of things which mostly apply in wartime and in espionage, but I think in everyday life they would be super cool and super useful.
I'm guessing you two both have smart homes.
Pretty
much, yeah. Everything's automated.
Not as elegant as these slick magazine type households, but there's definitely a lot of.
I'm quite interested in the smart home because I've just gone through a project myself. What does your smart home look like? Are you running Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi? What are you doing?
Close. I'm running Home Assistant on a solid run x86 board because the Raspberry Pi SD card kept dying.
Okay.
It's a common problem. You'll run into it one day, don't worry.
Okay.
It's part of the learning curve. Home Assistant on that. Then I've got Frigate, which is a also open source AI watching all my cameras around, because I live in a big small holding out in Mildersdrift, Cradle. So there's cameras around the place. Frigate's watching the cameras. We get notification when there's someone at the gate, when there's a person walking at a certain time of night. It also monitors the solar system, so it enables or disables washing machines and borehole pumps and monitors water levels and those things, depending on how much solar is coming in at the moment or the battery charges are. It automatically switches our solar system from day mode to night mode, which allows certain appliances or certain power levels to happen. It switches between backup inverters if there's a problem, so I can hot swap. Get notifications when someone's at the gate. It auto closes the gate if the gate got stuck, which is super convenient. You might not think that.
Yeah.
It tells us when gate motor theft is a thing. At some point we built sensors to put into motors to tell us when someone's tampering. Now the system does it because I've got a little device that I built in my gate motor, and then when anything happens, that lets us know, and it can sound the alarm if the alarm is armed. It augments the alarm system with other sensors.
So we have another device which we both have installed where we live. So we use in our Riot work, we use a lot of software-defined radio to pick up and decode different things. So we found another application for our smart home where we set up these SDRs to just listen to all RF that's happening around our property.
To everyone else's alarm systems.
So you can hear their alarm systems. When someone's walking through your neighbour's yard, we pick it up on our systems. And so we've been playing a lot with sharing the RF from our neighbours. And you can pick up when your neighbour opens and closes their car. So
fascinating.
If you know where their Wi-Fi, so I've got lots of Wi-Fi hotspots too. So if you know where they are, they generally don't move. You can run software on them that tells you when there's probe requests, when someone's walking past.
I believe Wi-Fi 7 enables a lot of this stuff.
This is quite old. So this is from Wi-Fi 3 or 4 days, because your phone, as you walk around, it's always broadcasting saying, hey, home Wi-Fi, are you there? Hey, work Wi-Fi, are you there?
Yeah.
And it puts those names in. So there has been workaround in a lot of the OSs to try and randomize your MAC address every time it does that. But you can still fingerprint a particular device. So I'm working on a thing to add to all my hotspots around the property to say, well, if this particular Wi-Fi access point picks up motion, it's in the middle of nowhere. There shouldn't be anyone there at 2, 3 in the morning. So it's presence detection. That then feeds into Home Assistant, which feeds the alarm system or lets me notify, listen, there's someone in this quadrant or things like that. Almost like a radar, but using Wi-Fi.
Picture.
Yeah, correct. But I would like to have that in the mind. So I wake up super groggy, not really sure what day it is, and I immediately know, hey, there's a thing, because I've got a picture in my mind of it.
Right.
As opposed to opening my phone and then it's super bright and right down, look at the cameras. Oh, yeah, there's a thing there.
Yeah, but then it's too late sometimes.
So everything in the house is automated like that. I build the hardware and the sensors, and the wife does all the automations and the programming. So it's a great thing.
Okay, so your wife's a geek too.
Yeah, very much.
Okay, excellent. Fascinating to chat to you guys. I do have to ask you one last question, though. What happens when you get to the airport and you go through one of those machines? Do you set off all the alarms?
So local flights, not even it doesn't even register. But I flew to LA a few years ago, and they have a 360-degree X-ray machine. So you stand
like that Lodox thing.
Yeah, and it does a full body scan, and you do actually pick it up. It looks like a big starburst in the body. So it is detectable, but no, haven't had any issues from airport security yet.
Do you think security is aware of these things already? And
it's just the MRI machines are the things I'm still worried about. If I need to tattoo on me that I have implants in case I get put into an MRI and I'm unconscious, because I'm pretty sure it'll rip them out.
Yeah, that or it'll induce, it might melt them, because there's a big copper wire coil in there.
Oh, right.
And MRI is a big magnet, so it might induce some interesting currents, and
you might catch a light.
Yeah, I might catch a light.
Like an airplane battery.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. I'll let you know when that happens.
Excellent. Well, fascinating conversation, guys. Thank you so much. I look forward to hearing what you're upgrading next and why, and please stay in touch. And of course, what Riot Network is doing in Olievenhoutbosch and elsewhere. Look forward to learning more as that project expands. And again, if you missed that interview, go back and have a listen to it. It's really worthwhile. We did a detailed article and a tour of Olievenhoutbosch to have a look at that wireless mesh network, and it really is very, very cool. Jarryd Bekker is CEO of Riot Network, and Daniel de Kock is Chief Technology Officer. Thank you so much for talking to TechCentral today.
Thank you, Duncan.
Thanks.
Thanks.